Hello, I'm Chris Chapman, and you're listening to the Sirens of Audio.
G'day, audiophiles. Welcome to another instalment of the Sirens of Audio, where you have to hear it to believe it. My name's Dwayne, I'm your host, and joining me is my fellow big finisher-phile, Philip. Hey, Philip.
Hey there, Dwayne. How are you going? Hi, everyone.
How's things been over the last couple of weeks? Been listening to much?
Well, yeah, the good thing about having the COVID still happening is lots of opportunities to listen. So doing lots of walking, doing lots of listening, enjoying myself. And there's been some good stuff come out this month as well.
Yeah, excellent. I thought, well, that segues right into the opportunity that we have now to have a look back at what came out over the month of June. So let's have a look at some of those releases now. If I bring up the Big Finish website, let me go and have a look. First thing that came out last month was the Volume 2 of Time Slip. Did you get a chance to... Have you heard the first series of Time Slip yet?
I must admit I've not listened to Time Slip at all. So have you been listening to Time Slip?
I haven't. It's one of the ones that I got. I think I only got the first series relatively recently because I wasn't overly interested at first, but it was getting such good reviews that it really started to fascinate me. So... and because they're doing it in a different way, in as much as they're not rebooting the series, they're bringing the original cast members back with a couple of new youngsters in it. So I like that idea. Of course, with Sarah Sutton in it as well. I don't know what her role is, but I'm looking forward to that as well.
Do you know the original series at all?
I don't. Did we get it in Australia?
I'd never even heard of it before it first got released with Big Finish. So I should have a go and listen to it.
Yeah, I had heard of the series, but I can't say if it's ever... I like, back in the early 80s when I was, they had that early morning television where we'd watch things like The Tomorrow People was on every morning. I would expect that Time Slip would be something that could go into there, or even if it was on the ABC in a slot like Catweasel was often replayed. So, I can't recall ever seeing it in Australia. Don't know if it was here.
Me either. But I'll have a listen sometime, hopefully this month.
Okay, a couple of Terrorhawks as well. Are you into Terrorhawks?
No, I'm not into Terrorhawks either. It's starting badly, aren't I?
Well, there was one Terrorhawks and another Jerry Anderson release. So, for people who like that style, Jamie Anderson, I think, is co-producing that along with Big Finish. So there's a couple of those. One Terrorhawks and another one called Into Infinity. Torchwood, Dinner and a Show was released as well. That's a... Yanto and Tosh.
That one I've listened to.
What'd you think of that?
I thought it was great. It was very funny. I think the Torchwood monthly series is probably the best range of Torchwoods. Some of the other series that have come out I've not enjoyed as much, but nearly every month it's stunning, and this month was very funny. So,
excellent.
Tosh, have you heard it?
No, I haven't. But I've got to say though that with the monthlies, I started getting the Torchwood monthlies right from the beginning. Then the box set started coming out, and when I've got to admit that when Aliens Among Us was released, I stopped. It turned me off Torchwood completely. So, and it wasn't until very, very recently when the Michael Palin episode got such kudos from everywhere that it got me fascinated in hearing Torchwood again. So since then, I've heard that one and dipped into a couple of the other ones like The Green Life and those ones in between. So, yeah, I haven't been...
The box sets I wasn't impressed with either, particularly.
Is that right? Yeah.
And I've actually still got this. It's still sitting in my app, the whole last series. I think it's 3 or 4 box sets sitting there waiting to be listened to. I've downloaded them, but every time I've gone to start them, I've just not had the energy to do it. So they're still sitting there, and I just listen to other stuff first.
So there was 2 series, wasn't there? There was Aliens Among Us, and then there was God Among Us, wasn't it?
God Among Us. And I think it's 3 box sets. And this, as I said, I think it's just sitting there. I bought it. It's in my app. I've downloaded it. I just haven't listened yet. I started the first episode. I got about halfway through and went, no. So I will go back to it, but I think I just had to be in the right frame of mind for it. Dinner show is hilarious. All set in a theatre with an opera. Very, very funny script happening all the time. Yanto and Tosh are hilarious. So really great. So the other thing I actually listened to this month too, because I listened to the previous month's episode to Iceberg, which is a forget the character now. The one who died.
I've completely gone blank too.
Oh dear, is that dreadful?
How can we do that? How can we call ourselves Big Finish fans and not remember the?
Oh, I don't know. It's dreadful, isn't it?
Owen. It's Owen, right?
Owen, thank you. It's an Owen show, but that one's much darker.
I heard that. Yeah.
Owen shows tend to be, but it's basically a two-hander, and it's really powerful. So it's all set in a hospital, and it's a very clever two-handed script, and very exciting. So the 2 Torchwoods I've heard this month, both have been great.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Okay, so what else came out? The Avengers, some comic strip adaptations, Steed and Mrs. Peel. I can't say I've heard those ones. What I have heard of the Avengers is the original Series 1 remakes that Big Finish did, the missing stories. Well, a lot of them are missing. And I really, really enjoyed those too. So haven't heard too many others of the Avengers, but comic strip adaptations.
They're great. I've been listening to them today, actually.
You have
3 episodes in. So Steed and Mrs. Peel. Mrs. Peel I've always adored. So I remember watching the original Avengers when I was young, and they're still on now. Channel 9 still shows the Steed and Mrs. Peel color episodes once a week. So I was listening today. They're very funny, very 60s. The music is just amazing. Everyone's got Russian accents. All the baddies are all Russians, but they don't say they're Russian with atrocious accents. But ridiculous stories, weather machines and fireballs and stupid stuff, but very entertaining.
I did miss one from last month that was released, but I'll go back to that because the last June release that only came out a couple of days ago was the Short Trips Out of the Deep, which I haven't heard yet, but I've got to say the quality of the short trips is just phenomenal. If you want a short fix of Doctor Who, you can never go past these short trips, and they just keep going from strength to strength. You can almost always guarantee top-notch quality.
Yeah, a great opportunity for new writers to start writing and seeing some beautiful, inventive. I think the short trips have taken the place of the companion chronicles, which to me was always the most inventive range. And the short trips now are doing the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, the one that I missed, of course, was the new 8th Doctor box set, Stranded. That was released a week or two back, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Have you listened to it?
I've listened to the first maybe 1.5 episodes. I've got to say the episode 1 with the curator, Tom Baker playing the curator in it, I really enjoyed that. People talk about how it's a different kind of pace. Yeah, I get that, but I think it was about time with the 8th Doctor range to do something different, and I for one am quite happy with the change so far. I haven't finished the set yet, but if you have, what are your thoughts?
I've enjoyed it by the end. So I certainly struggled with the first 2 episodes, getting the pace and working that out. It was a very large cast of recurring characters that you have to get used to and start to understand where they fit in. So it's going to be the same characters all the way through, coming backwards and forwards in different episodes. So I wasn't sure I was enjoying it for the first 2 episodes, but by about episode 3, I was getting used to what was going on. I guess soap opera is probably a bit strong, but it's moving towards soap opera territory. In fact, there is romance, and there's love stories, and there's death, and there's funerals, and it is actually quite soap opera-ish, but there's enough adventure in it that starts to build up. So it's interesting seeing the Doctor in a circumstance he's very uncomfortable with. So I'm looking forward to the next one. It wasn't what I would have expected, but I think I like it. I'm still deciding. Non-committal is that.
Very good, very good. All right, so that was the releases for last month. We'll in future instalments of Sirens of Audio, we'll talk about what's happening in July. But today we're going to focus on a release that came out in January 2013, and the January monthly range releases are always known to try and kick the year off with a bit of a bang, and this one was no exception. It was a Sixth Doctor and Melanie story called The Wrong Doctors.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions. Doctor Who. The Wrong Doctors.
Peas pottage hot, peas pottage cold, peas pottage in the pot 9 days old.
Melanie Jane Bush, I sense her.
Shouldn't you be off travelling with a future doctor?
That's what the other you said when he left me here to meet you. I mean, not you, some other you.
So my other self is walking into a trap.
All you've done wiped from existence. Everything. Deleted from the timelines. Destroyed again and again.
The readings are off the scale. The Valancium's disintegrating. The toll must be paid.
How right you are. Here, Mardak. Down you go.
Killed Derek.
The raving, starving parasites of the vortex will feast on you. Listen, they're coming.
No.
Run, Doctor, run. How delicious. A Time Lord who's run out of time.
We seem to be trapped inside a very large bomb.
Just press down on this here handle.
Oh, Mel. I'm so sorry.
Subscribers get more at bigfinish.com.
Okay, Philip, The Wrong Doctors is your pick to have a look a little bit more in depth for this time. Why did you pick this one?
I think I picked this one just because I hadn't listened to it for a long time, and I love Colin Baker. I think Colin Baker is just superb on audio. I think of all the Doctors, he's probably my favourite in terms of what they've done with him and where they've progressed him to. And although I think I love him with all his companions, he's got so many to choose from. It was just a good opportunity to see Mel back again. Mel's one of those, I think, very underrated characters in Doctor Who.
Terribly underrated.
But this is the Doctor she was designed to be with. So I think part of Mel's issue is she was never designed to be with Sylvester McCoy. Her character was designed to go with Colin Baker. So hearing her with Colin is just the right fit. And so I just wanted to hear them together again. And this is actually, I think this was 7 years since she'd done her previous Big Finish story. So she'd been away for a big gap. And so I just wanted to hear how she came back and how she bounced.
And of course, this is a multi-Doctor story, but done in the very unique way in that the other Doctor is a future and a past iteration of the same Doctor. Have we had that before? I don't think I've ever seen that before in a Doctor Who story.
No, I don't think so. It's very timey-wimey because you're dealing with the young Doctor in terms of the Doctor that Mel's met at the trial of the Time Lord, and then you're dealing with the older Doctor who's been travelling for several years with Evelyn Smythe. And Evelyn's just left him to get married. He's feeling depressed and he thinks it's time to go pick up Mel. So you've got these two Doctors, and it's clever because I'm not sure if people are aware that they changed the Doctor's costume in Big Finish to give him a blue costume when he was travelling with Evelyn Smythe because they didn't like the multicoloured one. He's wearing the morning colours Necros or so. And so it actually gives them a way of letting us know which Doctor's being talked about because they talk about his coats or call him, bluey or purple or whatever is appropriate to keep the audience know which Doctor's talking at what time.
Yeah, I think Colin was also trying to inflect a bit more of the brusqueness of the younger Sixth Doctor as well, and make the older version of himself a little bit more mellow, as his travels with Evelyn certainly made him. As far as the story itself goes, I think it's trying to do a couple of things, but the main thing I think it's trying to do is introduce Mel, because in the trial of a Time Lord, Mel has obviously known the Doctor for a while, and it's so timey-wimey. I'm finding it hard to even find the words to describe the story. But I think it's going in a way. It's dealing with the trial of a Time Lord and taking him back. So there's a taking Mel back to that point. It's also trying to deal with Mel's memory as well. I'm not sure if it deals so much with Mel's skills as a computer programmer, but
well, there is actually a second Mel there as well, who we think is the younger Mel, but actually works out she's actually a projection of who Mel is. So in fact, they've got a Mel who is pretty incompetent, not too bright, and she's almost offensive when you first meet her in terms of, you know, they've worked really hard to make Mel a lot more smart and clever, and yet we have this Mel who can't do much. But that's been a deliberate ploy. When you actually work out as the story goes on, you realize I was actually not proper Mel. But nevertheless, the Doctor still, you know, gets very fond of her, and there's a tragic end, lots of tears. Makes for a good ending.
I've got to say, personally, I found the story a little bit too confusing, and we've talked before about Nick Briggs and his ability to tell non-linear stories, and he's the director for this one. And interestingly, it's Matt Fitton's first story, isn't it? So
it's actually Matt's third story. So it's his first one, Colin Bacon. So before this, he'd won. Matt was actually discovered through a competition, which I hadn't realised. He had entered one of those Big Finish writer scripts, but he didn't win. But they thought he was pretty good, so they actually gave him a single episode in recorded time. And so he had a one episode about a year earlier than this. They got him to write one of the countermeasure episodes in the first season. And he'd also written Black and White with Sylvester McCoy before this one too. So it's his third Doctor Who story. But he's still fairly new. I think there's more than 180 stories now credited to him in Big Finish. So this is certainly at the very beginning of his career. So at the moment he's writing everything.
And to think this is only, I mean, it is a long time, but compared to the history of Big Finish, it's only 7 years ago. So Matt Fitton hasn't even been there for half of the lifespan of Big Finish, and he's got such a major role in everything these days to do with Big Finish. What is he now? He's the script editor on the main range, works on a lot of the spin-offs as well, and
yeah, lots of the Eighth Doctor stories. Him and John Dorney are amazing people in terms of what they're producing. And you always know their scripts are going to be strong and solid. So yeah, everything Matt writes is good.
However, that being said, The Wrong Doctors by the end of it left me feeling a little bit cold, a little bit confused. I think trying to work out the different six Doctors had me on my toes. It's one of these stories that, and I was talking about Nick Briggs before too, loves all the timey-wimey stuff and talking non-linear. Well, this was talking non-linear in having the time moving all around you instead of going to all different times backwards and forwards. You're in the same spot, but time was moving all around you throughout the story. So I found that a little bit hard to follow.
I certainly had to go back and make sure I was paying attention, because you have a lot of the main guest cast were born the year that another one died, because they span over 150 years. These characters all caught up in one little time eddy. So yeah, it does get very confusing. You have to work for this one.
Yeah, it is one of those ones you've got to work for. I also felt that it was trying to tell too many stories. It felt to me like it was trying to cram in a few different stories that could have been split into completely separate stories altogether. So, for instance, the alien invasion story that's in there, I thought that could have been a separate story on its own. And you've got, all those different lives that we have a look at throughout that particular, because it's what do they call that spot where they are quarterized time?
Yes, quarterized time.
So
Pottage.
Peas Pottage. And of course we get Mel in pantomime style in the first couple of episodes singing a song about Peas Pottage. But yeah, she certainly does give a good performance in this one, and I was happy. I'm always happy to hear Bonnie Langford in Big Finish, because I think if Colin Baker got a rough deal as the Doctor, well, Bonnie Langford certainly got a very rough deal as a companion. Probably one of the roughest deals that there was as far as companions go on TV.
Yeah, I think she certainly came on board expecting to be working with Colin for a couple of years, and they knew each other quite well. They'd worked together on stage beforehand, so I think she would have been quite devastated when he was sacked. And yeah, and as much as I know her and Sylvester got on, they didn't know each other. They had different styles of acting, and how they changed her character was pretty severe.
So we've got a couple of regular Big Finish, what should we call them? Regulars in the cast. John Banks plays a part. Beth Chalmers is playing a part too. Were there any other members of the cast that stood out to you throughout this one, apart from the main cast?
James Joyce, who goes on to be Charlie's companion in the Charlie stories. So he's pretty good too. And also, I love the older lady, Patricia Leverton, who's done a number of things. The role I love the most is the Mother Superior role in Excelsis series. But she was pretty old at this stage. She actually only died last September when she was 91. So yeah,
Oh,
but
right.
I mean, I think Beth's done 65 stories. I think I saw James Joyce has done 36 stories. John Banks has done more than 100 stories. So it was certainly a repertoire of people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And at that stage, Alan Barnes was still script editor as well. So in that sort of 150 to 200, Alan Barnes, when he was script editing, I noticed that the stories did have a tendency to be quite complex. Did you notice that throughout that particular period of the main range?
Yes, well, I think it's probably the period I haven't listened to a lot of, because I know first time through it was hard work, and so it's why I've sort of thought I need to go back and re-listen to those stories and listen a bit more. But you're right, they are a lot more complex, and they do move around. Yeah, I think actually it's interesting what you're saying, because you are right. Even when I only listened last week to the story again, I'd almost blocked out the whole alien invasions side of the story, with the markers and things, because it just didn't seem necessary at all. I wonder if that's just a new writer thing, that new writers tend to put everything into a story and haven't learned yet to just not put everything in.
Yeah. No, very good. One other thing that I was still getting the hard copies at this stage, and were you like me? Did you turn the covers around so it had the correct Doctor's logo on it?
Actually, you know what? Because this is the first one I think with the new logo, and I actually preferred this new logo.
Oh, really?
And then these because these are logos. These stayed until the new branding, didn't they? It's only been changed when the most recent Doctor came out. I think it's been the same kind of branding. So no, I like the new. I like the new ones. I'm amused that you turned them around. That's funny.
No, yeah, well, it took me a while to realise that was the case, and I thought, I can turn those around. So I was doing that to all of my hard copies. But we're download now, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. All right, was there anything else you wanted to mention about the Wrong Doctors?
I think it was the amount of continuity and the way that they kept jumping backwards and forwards, I think, amused me. As I said, it came straight after, one of the Doctors came straight from the Trial of the Time Lord, and he actually then gets told to go off to Sheffield Hallam University for a history lesson. And so he's actually being told to go and meet Evelyn Smythe. So I'm amused by the fact that one Doctor's Evelyn's just left him, and because it starts with eating the last piece of chocolate cake and feeling depressed because he's lost his lovely companion, and so he decides to go get Mel. And the story ends with him telling the other Doctor telling him, "Go and meet her." So I love the circular nature of this story. A bit convoluted, but it's amusing.
You did mention the coat before, and I really did like that part of the story too, where obviously at the end of A Trial of a Time Lord, Colin Baker's still wearing the colourful costume, and I thought it was touching the way Mel said, "Oh, I really like you in that colourful jacket," and he says, "Oh, you definitely are a child of the '80s, aren't you?" And he says, "Well, just for you, I'm going to wear that jacket again." So that explains why he's got it back on for Trial of the Time
series.
Lord. Yeah. So yeah, I really like that part of it as well. Those nods back to the TV show. So yeah, not my favourite by a long shot, but certainly well worth putting in the effort to hear Colin Baker and Bonnie Langford, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think the two of them together are superb. Colin playing two different Doctors with his, as you said, his brash side, his softer side, Yeah, it's worth a listen. Not the best, but that's okay. It's still fun.
All right. So, on your suggestion, Philip, we're going to have a little segment now called What Have You Been Listening To? So, it doesn't have to be Doctor Who related or Big Finish related. And I'm going to give you the honour and put you right on the spot, because I didn't tell you beforehand I was going to do this, but I'm going to ask you, what have you been listening to that you would like to recommend for this episode of Sirens of Audio?
I am going to recommend Torchwood and Iceberg. So it's actually last month's release. So Owen Harper. It's all set in a hospital. It's very narrow. It's quite chilling. It's really just Owen and one other character. There's another character who says a few things, but it's basically a two-hander, nearly all set next to a hospital bed. But it's just talking about who you are, what makes you what you are, and it can get quite chilling. So if you're into a good yarn, great two-hander, go listen to Iceberg. It's brilliant.
Fantastic. I'm going to recommend two things. First of all, a box set that was released towards the end of last year called The Robots, which is a box set featuring Liv Chenka, who is a companion to the Eighth Doctor, who is also a native of Kaldor. She goes back home during Ravenous, doesn't she? They drop her off in one of the early episodes of Ravenous.
Yep, and pick her up 1 minute later. But
yes,
she's
but
been there for a year.
But during that time, she's been there for a year. So The Robots delves into that 1 year's time period and looks at what Liv has been up to. And I'd only just listened to that in the last couple of weeks, and so I'm a little bit behind on my catch-ups. But yeah, I really enjoyed that, and one of the main reasons I wanted to listen to it now was because Series 2 is about to come out in July and is going to be featuring David Collings. So they must have recorded this a little while ago because he's no longer with us. And also Pamela Salem. Pamela Salem as Toos. So, yeah, really excited about Series 2 of The Robots. But Series 1's fantastic too. Nicola Walker. And what's the other actress who's very famous? Can't think of her name off the top of my head.
Claire Rushbrook.
Claire Rushbrook, of course. There you go. Playing Nicola Walker's or Liv Chenka's sister.
Yeah. So she was also in Ravenous too. So there was the one story set in Ravenous. We've had her met her sister there, and that was a pretty chilling tale too. In the Ravenous series, I remember on Caldor, inside a huge shopping centre where all the robots go wild. And then this takes up the 4 stories from there. They're pretty good stories.
Yeah. Ravenous is another series that I haven't caught up with yet either. So I'm still yet to hear Ravenous 4. So I've still got all those to catch up with. So I'm just trying to sequentially go through as much as I can, but getting to that eventually. I just listened today to, well, since starting the podcast, I've been doing the monthlies every month. So I started with Dark Universe earlier this year, but the one that I had yet to catch up on was, I think, Harry Houdini's War, something like that. So I've listened to that. And today I just listened to Tartarus for the first time. So that was pretty cool because I really enjoyed Cicero.
Yes, excellent.
And Tartarus was a fantastic story. So another one that I can recommend too. So if you want to contact us on the podcast, you can do that. sirensofaudio@gmail.com. We've got a website, sirensofaudio.com. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitter at Audio Sirens. And we've got a Facebook page too. Just do a search for the Sirens of Audio. So in the meantime, ensure you listen to plenty of lovely, lovely audio drama. Do you know why? Because audio drama, it rocks!